Hello everyone and welcome back to another industry report. Well, as if Xbox Series X and S pre-orders kicking off weren't enough of a thing, Microsoft decided to drop another bombshell. They are buying ZeniMax Media. This is a truly massive deal. It brings in 8 studios, thousands of staff, and some of the biggest franchises in gaming today. Microsoft have invested a lot here, obviously, but they also do stand to gain a lot back. What exactly? That's a little bit hard to say at this early stage, but as an example, it's even possible that the next Elder Scrolls could be a Microsoft exclusive. And what's more is that Microsoft have even swiped a timed exclusive out from under Sony. It's quite a situation. So, with these new consoles being afoot, it is time to save time and money with the help of today's sponsor, GlassesUSA.com. Because of them, I can see the news clearly. And look, here's the thing. I need glasses or else I can't see well, and I've never liked shopping for glasses, right? It's not a fun experience. It's often really overpriced, and it's just hard. But that's not the case with Glasses USA because, right, by them actually cutting out the middleman, they're offering you prescription glasses at up to 70% off. And if you click my link below, you'll get a great offer and free shipping. Now, for me, one of the reasons why glasses are a bit tricky is I don't really know what's going to work in me, and that's why their virtual mirror is extremely handy to use. Using that was a lot easier in their massive range than just, showing up at the glasses store and trying a few pairs on. It was great. And also, they have an app that scans your current glasses and tells you what your prescription is if you don't know it. That seems like magic to me. Now, what I loved was getting glasses that cover all the bases. So I've got these rimless ones that I love, and I've got these big blue lights, and what's really great about these is they actually fit my Oculus Quest perfectly, so I can do that, actually have blue light. And then, of course, prescription shades. I have never had prescription shades before, and I do now. Plus, of course, a regular reading glasses frame too. So it's all pretty darn sweet, to be honest with you, and as I said, you'll get a special offer with that link down below, and the whole thing's risk-free anyway with a 100% money-back guarantee. So, thanks to GlassesUSA.com for upping my glasses game, helping out the channel, and with that said, let's get to the video. First up, let's do some background on the deal. So, this agreement is worth $7.5 billion. That's, if you're counting, 3 times what Microsoft paid for Minecraft back in 2014. And it actually brings 2,300 Bethesda employees from around the world into the Xbox game fold, along with, of course, studios like id Software, Arcane, Machine Games, and Roundhouse Studios. And that's franchises like The Elder Scrolls, Doom, Fallout, Dishonored, Starfield. It's absolutely bloody massive, and it actually moves Xbox Game Studios from 15 to 23. That is something that increases at a fundamental level the amount of first-party game development that Microsoft can do. And when it comes to that fight, basically over exclusives with Sony, that's something you'll really see come into the fore as the years go on. What's more, though, is that the entire selection of Bethesda's franchises will be coming to Xbox Game Pass, as will future titles like Starfield. They'll be there on that subservice on launch day, and I of course would assume that is on Xbox and also on PC. So yes, you could purchase Starfield, or you could probably get some pretty good introductory deal on Game Pass and play it for barely anything. You can really see that Xbox's value play is what they are doubling down on. I think the difference now is that value play includes a hell of a lot more games, and I think, as the years roll on, will include a hell of a lot more exclusives. Now, of course, to make this public, Phil Spencer, Todd Howard, and Pete Hines all made statements, and I was originally going to go through these statements in a bit more detail, but to be honest with you, I'm just going to cut to the chase. They were very wistful and romantic, about how, Morrowind, it was on the original Xbox, and Todd Howard's visit to Redmond to make that happen, blah, 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 blah. The point is, they basically just came up with reasons why they've really been a match made in heaven for such a long time indeed. And, the great history that the Elder Scrolls and just the Bethesda games have had on the Xbox platforms, which, while you might think it's a load of bull, you then remember the PS3 version of Skyrim and how well ran that thing was. By the way, in case you're not aware, it barely worked. But of course, there are some valid points, like Bethesda being there in the early days of Xbox Game Pass, and of course also being there in the early days of Xbox itself. And basically, the whole lot of them talked about making, a more diverse array of creative experiences and more games for players. Essentially, it's all what you would expect. Pete Hines was the person who actually came in with the meat and basically just said, it's going to be change, it's going to be more funding, which will allow Bethesda to be a better developer and a better publisher. In terms of the core statements, that's all you really need to know. There's not that much meat in them. It's just kind of wistful romantic stuff. And with that said, let's actually just talk about what this means for the industry. Obviously, it's early days and the actual specifics of this haven't exactly been leaked. But that said, let's first start up with the money, right? So this cost Microsoft an absolute fortune, $7.5 billion. But of course, while that was an enormous fortune, they now have acquired an enormous amount of talent and humongous franchises, some of the largest ones in gaming. I mean, come on, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Wolfenstein. That's absolutely massive. Now, a while back, right, we had key industry analysts talking about how Microsoft's very chunky balance sheet could let them do things that Sony couldn't do. And I think this is where we're seeing that happen once again. And just to give you a sort of comparison between the size of these two different companies, Sony's market capitalization right now is 10.5 trillion yen. Now that's 97.74 billion United States dollars. Microsoft's market cap is 1.51 trillion USD. So yes, that is a 100-odd billion market cap company going up against a $1.5 trillion market cap company. Now, obviously, not everything is about market capitalization. That is definitely true, but that does give you a quick look at the comparative size of these two different companies. So yes, it should be absolutely no surprise that Microsoft can afford acquisitions and big money that, Sony kind of can't right now. Now, moving on to other parts of this deal, a funny part of this is really just that Bethesda and Obsidian are now sister studios, and this is something that really is quite funny. Of course, immediately you do think, could a Fallout New Vegas 2 be possible? Now, the thing is, you could say that, and it would make some sense on paper, but that said, Obsidian are now working on a whole bunch of their own things, but of course one of those is a big first-person RPG in the form of Avowed. There's also Outer Worlds, which very much, was trying to be Fallout New Vegas-ish. And I do have to wonder if Obsidian would just rather, do their own thing like with Avowed. But that said, I mean, if you did want to re-inject some hype and remove some cynicism from the Fallout brand, well, yes, you probably would do Fallout New Vegas 2, and you would do that with Obsidian. Of course, I imagine Obsidian would still be a little bit salty that they missed their performance-based bonus because I think they got an 84 in Metacritic instead of an 85, but it's something that now can happen because they're all under that Microsoft family. Then as we move on for the analysis, well, there is that Bethesda's catalog is going to be coming to Xbox Game Pass. That is a massive move. Now, future titles like Starfield and Elder Scrolls will, of course, be hitting that as well on launch day, just like any other Xbox Game Studio title. Now, that would mean that, I'd say if Starfield was coming out decently soon, there's a high chance it would be offering smart delivery across the generations. But that said, for the next Elder Scrolls, I imagine that would be a true next-gen exclusive, purely just because of the development time of that game. Now, from a value point of view, this thing is absolutely major because yet another segment of the gaming market has fallen within the Game Pass umbrella. If you like those big AAA first-party Microsoft experiences, fine. But that is a smaller market. I think less people are hyped about first-party Microsoft than they are for first-party Sony, and that's somewhere where Sony have traditionally won. But now what has happened is they have just massively expanded what first-party Microsoft means, because it now means Doom, it means Fallout, and it means Elder Scrolls. Now that means that a significant portion of what many gamers are actually excited about for the next 5 years of gaming is Microsoft first party and is going to be on Game Pass. That's absolutely major. Now, think about this from a value perspective. We could do this with the Series X, right? That's 35 USD a month for 2 years. Of course, for a Series S, I believe that's 25 for 2 years. But the wild thing about that way of purchasing those consoles is, of course, that includes Game Pass and all of those things. But when you actually add up, right, how much Game Pass and the subscription stuff, and, you add all of that up, and then you think about the console's RRP, it's actually cheaper to buy the 2-year payment plan version of the Series X than it is to just buy a Series X and then Game Pass. And the same goes for the Series S. Now, this is going to be massive when it comes to a lot of people thinking about their purchasing decisions, especially, say, parents at Christmas where they want to get some sort of gift, but, it's got to make sense for their budget. Now, this is a situation where yes, you've got the Game Pass library. You've got the Game Pass library with all of its upcoming big Microsoft things, but you've also now got all of Bethesda included in that. That's another segment of gaming included. The same also goes for the basic version of EA Play that is also on Game Pass. And that does mean that if you want the maximum amount of game for amount of money spent, yes, the deal that people would be getting here would be quite immense, especially in the short term, and it is just another segment of the gaming market going on to Game Pass. We should not overlook that. I think that is massive, especially in the eyes of value-oriented consumers. Then also, there is the topic of exclusivity, because you're probably also thinking, wow, is Elder Scrolls 6 going to be a Windows and Xbox exclusive? That would be such a difference from the past. Now, we don't know exactly, but Phil basically, he stopped just short of confirming it when he was discussing his excitement at future titles coming to Xbox and to PC. And while exclusivity certainly would make sense, considering that, Microsoft now own these studios, it wouldn't exactly work with the whole play however you like message that Microsoft are trying to send with this new generation. But still, if they did go exclusive and people knew, oh, the next Doom, the next Elder Scrolls, they're Microsoft only, that would severely damage Sony. Let's just be real, it absolutely would thwack them. Because the Elder Scrolls 6 is probably going to be one of the most hyped games of the next 5 to 10 years, right? That's almost certainly going to be that. So if that's something that's on Microsoft, then we're at a situation where Microsoft have got heavy hitters that are pretty much at a similar tier to God of War or The Last of Us, arguably even to a greater tier, which would be something they've not had recently. That would be damaging Sony in the one part of the console war where they're clearly winning exclusives. Now, actually, on that exclusivity point, Microsoft, of course, are now overseeing 2 timed PlayStation exclusives. That's a bit wild, and it's in the form of Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Now, this is all kinds of weird, right? Microsoft publishing a timed exclusive. Bethesda, a wing of Microsoft, publishing a timed exclusive in the PS5. That's quite funny. And on that, Phil Spencer told Bloomberg that Microsoft would be honoring those exclusivity commitments and that all future Bethesda games will be on Xbox, PC, and other consoles on a case-by-case basis. That is what he said, case-by-case basis. So yes, if Microsoft is, down in the console war and they just decide the next Elder Scrolls is Microsoft only, they can now do that. They own it. And, that is something that is, I guess, fair enough, but it's also kind of funny. Microsoft might actually end up releasing more first-party exclusives on the PS5 than the Series X and S, at least for a small period of time, which when you think about it, is pretty damn absurd. Now, another funny part of this as well is just how much of the Western role-playing game market that Microsoft now control. I mean, they've got Obsidian, right? So that means Outer Worlds, it means Avowed, it means Pillar of Eternity, of course Bethesda and all that they bring, and also In Exile. Many people forget about In Exile, it's Brian Fargo, and that's, Wasteland 3. That is so much of, the really big Western RPGs. Now, of course, you've got Cyberpunk 2077, you've got Larian, who are off there doing Baldur's Gate. Those are 2 very big ones that are not within that fold, but certainly, if you're a Western RPG fan, yeah, a lot of that's taking place in Microsoft now. Now, as for Sony, well, this is where it gets really spicy because they reportedly had already begun negotiating a timed exclusivity deal for Starfield, and that was reported as being something that happened a few months ago. Now, we know that Sony had really focused on acquisitions and were spending a lot of money for their, as they call them, PlayStation advantages, as well as, say, their timed exclusives. So what happened? I mean, Microsoft, did they just outbid them massively? Or was it just a situation where they were like, well, Sony are discussing this deal with Bethesda. How about we buy them and their parent company? Let's just do that. We're Microsoft. Our market cap is $1.5 trillion. We're bigger than them. That's what they can basically do. I mean, this is clearly bad for Sony, and they just cannot compete with an acquisition of that size. I mean, $7.5 billion. That's roughly 7.5% of Sony Corp's market cap. Just to put into perspective how much money Microsoft spent here. So this is a massive win for Microsoft, who will get far more in the way of, first-party studios, and I think that's really going to come into play in the, what I would call, late, early, and mid-period of this next console generation. I mean, when you think about it, right? 23 studios is what they have. Sony have 13, right? That's just a fundamental difference. Microsoft have almost got double the in-house studios in terms of number of studios anyway. Now then, technology-wise, we have to think about things too, because what have they also acquired? Well, they've acquired the Tech engine. We also know that there is specialist, game streaming technology that id were working on. Well, that's a pretty good thing for Microsoft to have acquired, since they're also doing, of course, xCloud. And then, of course, they will just have whatever tools and resources, etc., that Bethesda and ZeniMax have. Plus, as well, I guess, they've got Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, Microsoft now have their own MMO. That's pretty cool. Plus, I mean, just the talent acquisition. I mean, we're in a world where one of the reasons why Activision Blizzard got rid of Bungie was that they just didn't have enough studios to get stuff done. Now what has happened? Over here, we have however many studios and 2,300 staff going to Microsoft. At the end of the day, that's a lot of human capital, that's a lot of talent, and ultimately, it is the talent that makes the games. That's big. And this is so big as an overall story, none of us could have seen this coming. And I can't imagine Sony saw this coming even, a few months ago, right? This must be a big surprise for them. And it is funny how times change. I mean, it was reported, right, that Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, was considering exiting the game space. And this was back before Phil Spencer took over Xbox. So, I mean, I think we're just seeing here, Phil Spencer's tenure at Xbox is really beginning to turn the tide, right? Now, of course, he inherited so many problems. He still has to contend with issues like the state of Halo Infinite, but man, it is a turnaround from the situation we had. Remember, like, the Don Matrick era? Remember when it was
TV experience. TV and movies, TV. Xbox, watch TV.
And that was the Xbox One. That's what, Phil Spencer inherited. That situation where Scalebound failed, they had crashed loads of studios, cancelled so many games, everything was going bad. Halo 5 Guardians was a bit of a mess, especially narratively. It damaged the Halo brand, as did Halo 4. It was all going bad for Microsoft. Seemingly, this change in leadership is actually turning things around. And you've got to remember there, it's a slow turning ship. He had the power to make a lot of those big changes in 2017, yet you have to remember so many of these really big game projects, they take 3 to 5 years to make. And that means that, the big things that are happening will only be paying dividends, years to come, and we're only really seeing the start of it. So to tie this all up in a bow, well, press releases and flowery statements aside, this is obviously a bloody massive bit of news to just have dropped on a random September Monday. It could be absolutely huge, not only for Microsoft, but also for the games industry in general. And it kind of needs to be. Microsoft invested a lot of money into this. Now, obviously, Bethesda and ZeniMax, I think, are onto a bit of a winner here for themselves. They get a lot of money in. It seems like their structure won't be sort of messed up with too much, and they just now have Microsoft's backing, so they can probably do a fair bit more. Now, it will be interesting to see what this acquisition means for ZeniMax structure-wise, whether we'll maybe see a change in philosophy. As an example, Bethesda have got a big old reputation of just blacklisting media. That flies totally in the face of how Microsoft do things. So will that change? Fallout 76 and its annoying microtransactions and how they've infected the design of the game. Will that change if it's supposed to be a premium first-party sort of a la carte Microsoft experience? You do have to wonder. So yes, a $7.5 billion deal, and if you would like to save some dollars for yourself, then GlassesUSA.com are the place to go. They make the whole thing fast and easy, and they let you compare your glasses super simple with the facial preview feature that's pretty damn great, the virtual mirror. So you can check them out and support the channel down below. Other than that though, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.